So needless to say, once we got back to the hospital, I was still only at 1 centimeter and I wanted to stay. And so I essentially committed myself to the hospital protocol of intervention after intervention after intervention. I had surrendered. I couldn't fight it anymore. I couldn't fight it. I couldn't be on my own. And so I just allowed, right? Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And I ended up with a C-section, needless to say. Had my, artificial rupture of membranes, and I knew my son was not in that optimal position. I knew I needed to move him, right? That he needed to move. I knew all this stuff. And it's like, it didn't matter how much I knew. I didn't have the support, right? It didn't matter how much I knew because I knew everything that was going on in my body. And I knew what to do, but I didn't have any support. It was just me. And I couldn't do everything on myself, And so, luckily, the woman doctor who was the doctor who allowed me to make a choice for my own body when my son was born, who very much picked up on the things that was going on in my relationship, although I didn't know it at the time and I didn't understand it because I just wasn't there yet. She gave me my dignity back. And that in and of itself was a huge blessing. She allowed me to choose the time of birth. It could have been the day my son was born, and it could have been the next day, and she allowed me to make that choice. She allowed me to have my process. She gave me my power back. And as traumatic as it was, I was so grateful for that. I had a great C-section. A great recovery. Like everything went really good. She was a very, very good doctor. And I was very blessed to have that. A healthy son, big boy, almost 10 pounds, 9 pounds, 10 ounces. And, I got my healthy boy. That wasn't the end of my trauma. I did, the day that we brought my son home, my ex-husband became even more abusive, losing control, whatever it may be. He didn't like the fact that I was in my power, right, as a mother. He couldn't handle it. Like I knew what to do, and somehow he didn't like the fact that I was in my power. And so, needless to say, it was a difficult homecoming and a difficult recovery period. And it took me years to come to terms with that experience. I had to leave my marriage behind in order to be able to have a safe space to fully process through it. But the importance of processing through trauma, the importance of processing through birth trauma, family trauma, relationship trauma, whatever it may be, is so important because you cannot be a healthy individual without having processed through that, without coming to spaces of understanding, without grieving, without truly living. Being alive means processing through the bad stuff. It means coming to terms with the bad stuff, the ugly stuff, the stuff we don't want to face. And that's not just within our interpersonal relationships. That is within ourselves and our shadow side, the things that we don't like to look at about ourselves. And that also is in society in general. And when we have these unprocessed traumas, it inhibits our life. it keeps us from being able to have a healthy conception. It keeps us from being able to have a healthy pregnancy. And that doesn't mean that, you know, if you can't conceive, you're in an unhealthy relationship. It may mean that there are things from your childhood that you haven't processed through. Something from a previous relationship. Maybe there are issues in your relationship that are they just need to be brought forth. They need to be worked through as a partnership, right? They need to be come to terms with. And these are the things that when we bury them and we do not bring them out and we do not release them and we do not gain the wisdom and the understanding from these traumas, from these experiences, we are not able to move forward in healthy ways. And we will experience things like infertility, like a traumatic birth experience, like a miscarriage, like developmental issues in childhood, dysfunctional families. So it's really, really getting down to, before you choose to bring life into this world, digging in deep and making the choice for yourself, making the choice for your partner, making the choice for your family to change things, to have that impact, because your child will be healthier if you make those choices before conception. And these are things like, nutrition. These are, they're very simple things, and yet they are very difficult for us to do in order to have a conscious conception. And some of the work I do is to assist individuals in processing through these traumas in very easy ways, right? This isn't 20 years of therapy, and that's often why a lot of people won't do the work before, and they end up having to go perhaps down a path like IVF. And I'm not judging that path. There's nothing wrong with it, but if you take a step back and you do the work before going down that, number one, it's going to be an easier path for you. You're more likely to conceive that way if that is your path. Number two, you can conceive naturally. I can't tell you how many clients I've had as a doula who were given, they were told they have polycystic. Most of my clients, they were told things. They were told they have PCOS. They were told they have endometriosis. Like all these things that make it difficult to get pregnant. They had babies, happy, healthy babies. I had one client who was told that she would have to get IVF, and made some changes in her life and got pregnant naturally. There are so many success stories of making those changes prior that will allow you to have that experience you truly desire, that natural experience, not being pumped up with a bunch of, hormones in order to conceive, but conceiving naturally. If that's your choice, there are ways for that.